I'm Drew Breezy, and this is the Comm Center. Coming up, we're going to discuss how in the world we reckon with all of the tragedy that's around us as we once again are dealing with multiple officers being taken from us in Charlotte, Mecklenburg. In the attempt to lighten things up a little bit, we're going to take you on a roller coaster of emotions in Cleveland as we revisit the Cleveland kidnappings and the actual 911 calls. It's a tough story with some positive outcomes and plenty to laugh about. And John is going to explain through pantomime the last 8 years of presidential politics. This is an exclusive for our podcast-only listeners. All that and what it means for your weekend on the Comm Center.
City council members have announced their plan to disband the Minneapolis Police Department.
We're calling for defunding the police.
Shootings in New York City have more than doubled this year.
I love that song. It's the Comm Center with Drew Breezy. It's a TV show on the internet about two best friends who investigate a man trying to stop major sandwich corporations from selling food a foot in length. When they discover his filthy habit of stealing other people's mail, they report him to the dubious local postal inspector, Mitch Vogel. You can guess what happens next. I'm joined as always by Drew Breezy, my podcasting partner with Police Benefits. He was a cop forever and a day. Drew, how the heck are you? It's been a while since I've last talked to you.
I'm doing okay. I'm struggling with a little back pain, but other than that, I'm doing pretty good.
You deserve it.
I'm sure I do. No, I'm doing okay. There's some there's an illness running around the Baxter household. It may have stemmed from a tooth infection. Not me, but so I'm Florence Nightingaling my way through the week and just trying to deal with cope with all of the stuff that we see around us. I mean, we got a lot of heavy stuff going on around us, don't we?
Shocking, irritating, heartbreaking. I believe it was just last week when we were talking about Deputy Tobin Bolter, and I said the words, I'm sorry for what's coming next. I said that there's going to be a name that replaces yours in the narrative in the national media and in the hearts and minds, because there's a war on police in this country, and it starts at a cultural level and it's bolstered at a political level. But unfortunately, we just lost 4 law enforcement officers in North Carolina, and it's even more shocking and even more troublesome than everything that happened with Deputy Tobin Bolter, not to take away from him. But I mean, it's just sad that we live in a country where you can call the future like that, where you can say next week we're going to be talking about somebody else. And sure enough, here we are, and we're getting numb to it, Drew. Joe Grimaldi, the president of the FOP, didn't he say something the other day that we'd have had 15 officers shot in the last 3 or 4 days? I mean,
I'm actually looking for that as we speak. There are a few people that I'm willing to share their stories, at all costs, generally just about everything they post, because it means something. I'm not trying to be my usual condescending self, but what I'm saying is I repost these things about how many people are shot that day because the shootings don't make the news. The shootings make local news. Okay, they don't make national news. So if there are people around the nation, I kind of want them to see every day on my story that 4 more cops are shot. I don't want them to see that because I want cops to be shot. I want that to be in their face. Like, this danger is real. And I know that it's a very small percentage of the profession, but it's a very real number. And juxtapose that with what we dealt with in 2020 and 2016 and every other election year prior, where we were told the opposite. We were told that no police officers are harmed and they're actually on the hunt for unarmed black men and all this other stuff. And the numbers never supported that.
No.
The media did though, and the little black squares on social media did, and everybody just kept, just kept sharing the stuff that wasn't true, which undermined law enforcement in this country, which has in turn over the past few years empowered people to dehumanize law enforcement officers. These are just people out here doing their jobs. And when you criticize every single thing they say or every single thing they do, because you're only going to see the negative stuff on social media, and you can share that over and over and over again. It just kind of empowers the people to do things like this. So we have a Tobin Bolter situation where, the Ada County deputy was taken from us in the line of duty. And then you just simply, prognosticate like, yeah, unfortunately your name's going to be replaced with somebody else's. It's not that we're going to forget you. It's just that somebody else is going to be in your position, very unfortunately. And then yesterday, whenever you're, depending on when you're watching this, but this tragedy in Charlotte, Mecklenburg, they were serving an arrest warrant. This is a Marshal Service Fugitive Task Force. They were serving an arrest warrant on this guy for felon in possession of a firearm. Okay, so what normally happens in a situation like this, if there's a mass shooting somewhere, if there's anything involving a gun, you get the dumb politicians to jump on this is why we need gun control bandwagon. But gun control only, and I'm not trying to get on a pro-gun stance here, but gun control only applies to the people that want to follow the rules and that care about the Constitution, right? So this guy was already a convicted felon. He was already possessing a firearm. They already went through the trouble of getting a warrant for his arrest for that offense. And when they go to serve him with his arrest warrant for that offense, what do you think happens? I mean, this happens more often than not, but he had a high-powered rifle and he just shot and killed 4 officers, like 3 there and 1 died in the hospital, and then shot numerous others, like I think 4 or 5 others.
It was 8 total that were shot and 4 were killed.
And so the tragedy train just rolls down the tracks, John, and we talk about, our job or our profession or our show, like, I'm a cop, so I'm a cop at heart. We're going to talk about cop stuff, and we know that we're representing the underrepresented dispatchers, and just like we talked about in the Tobin Bolter thing, there was somebody on the radio when all of this happened, and there was somebody that is touched by, like, whether it was the deputy U.S. Marshals or the police officer that was killed, he may be close with the people in there. There might be a husband, there might be a wife up there in the communication center. Who knows? I don't know any of that to be factual, but I'm just saying, you forge relationships with people you work with. I don't care if you work at UPS, Krispy Kreme, or you work as like John's former life as a Dallas Cowboy cheerleader. You just forge these relationships with the people you work with, and who knows how this is affecting this entire agency. Like, I can't say it enough. This is not about me, but I've been through this zombie land that there's no smoke, so to speak, in the literal sense, in a communication center after something like this happens. But in the 30 minutes, hour, 10 hours after this happens, you can feel smoke settling. You can almost, like, you can't necessarily smell it, but it's just an energy that it can't be replicated. And unfortunately, it is replicated a lot. But I mean, what I'm saying is I can't describe it to people.
Yeah,
it's just it's very unfortunate. Exponentially, all of the lives that are affected by these officers' deaths. And then just, the people that have to endure this tragedy day in and day out too, that we have to think about. It's tough.
It inherently affects dispatchers because, rational or not, we view it as our most critical mission to keep cops alive.
Yes.
Knowingly sending them into danger, mitigating that danger, trying to clean up the blood once bullets start flying, getting resources there in time. There's no amount of training or technology or resources that can do battle with bullets effectively. I mean, it just comes down to what God has planned for everyone, and sometimes those plans don't feel good, and we all have to reckon with it. And we view the inevitable outcomes of everyone's lives when it ends this way as a critical mission failure. And um, anyone that does this job and does it well and does it for a long time, so I'm maybe being a little exclusive among some dispatchers who come and go, or new people or whatever, but the people who are invested, the comms directors, longtime dispatchers, the excellent dispatchers, the people that have a heart for it, whatever their longevity, they're deeply invested personally into it. So it's not just a professional loss when that happens. And we were talking about a Charlotte Mecklenburg officer, 2 corrections officers, U.S. Marshals. So we've got people from all different levels, right? City, state, federal. It's affecting a lot of different people, and it's affecting their families and the community. And,
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, John. We're talking on the professional level, and like the exponential part hits with friends and family. It's not just people in the job; it's the people they go to church with. It's like I can't imagine. I can't imagine Jackson not having me come home, like the emptiness, or his dad, or his his mom, my wife, like one of us not coming home. I just can't imagine the emptiness that this kid would feel for the rest of his life. Like that's like my biggest fear. That's the eternal sadness that I feel. That this kid, they have children and they're affected. They have brothers and they have sisters and they have mothers, and they're just human beings, and they were out trying to do a job. And then, lest we forget, we talk about the induction of trauma, like in stuff when stuff like this happens. I mean, you have a whole set of rescue personnel that have gone out there to try to save them, and you have rescue dispatchers too, and you have emergency room personnel that are trying to save them, and it's just a sad story. John, I want to get on to something a little bit lighter. I made reference to the fact that this is a pretty heavy story, but at the same time it's got some very light moments, and it's got a positive outcome for once, even though they endured a lot of tragedy. But
we're going to talk about Cleveland PD being heroes.
Yeah, but Cleveland PD actually displaying some a degree of heroism. So here we go.
May 6, 2013, the gritty heartland city of Cleveland witnessed a miracle.
Help me, I'm Amanda Berry. I've been kidnapped and I've been missing for 10 years, and I'm here, I'm free now.
Amanda told the police, I ain't just the only one, it's some more girls up in that house.
Gina DeJesus returns here. She is indeed home. Michelle Knight was never on our radar at all.
Police arrested who owns the home is 50.
Their abductor, it turns out, was a deranged school bus driver.
Now we want the world to know we survived.
We love life.
We were stronger than Ariel Castro.
I wanted to be the best mom.
She goes to look for a job to better her life and leaves her child in the hands of her mother.
Her mother's boyfriend was drunk, and he grabbed Joey by the leg and fractured his knee. Michelle took Joey to the hospital, and social services put Joey in foster care.
She is going to court because she's fighting desperately to get her little boy Joey back.
I was so super excited to get to the appointment, and then I couldn't find the place.
She was pretty desperate, so she walked over to a Family Dollar store to ask the clerk where this address was.
And then my best friend's father comes into the store. And
he gets you to the appointment with the custody
he
hearing.
said, I know where it's at. I can take you straight to it. So I got into his car. We started talking about how his daughter was at home, and I was like, it would be super nice to see her. He shoved me in the room and he said, you're not gonna leave for a long time. And then he starts undressing himself. And he ripped up my son's picture right in front of me. The only picture I had, and said you'll never see him. And that hurt it so bad, the knife felt like it was going deeper and deeper into my chest.
So, John, imagine thinking, I'm probably not going to survive today. Like, I'm probably, first of all, that was her best friend's dad. So, you know, like, I guess her best friend lived with the mom part of that, but this is her best friend's dad. So imagine thinking this is your last day on earth, first of all, and then come to find out you're going to be held captive for a decade almost. Pretty intense.
It was shocking. I know that she was 21 years old at the time. She had a bit of a troubled history. She had some domestic abuse from somebody in her family. She had fled the house when she was 15. For a while, she was homeless. She was running with some shady characters, which I'm not using to impugn her character. I mean, that's just kind of her story.
Yeah.
And then
I cut it out, but she was sexually abused as a child.
She was. But what was interesting, and Drew, it's something I'd like to get your take on, if you don't mind, just a little bit of talking, a little bit of procedure, is that she was at one point, she was entered into NCIC as a missing person. And then a lot of people who don't like the outcome of this case criticize the fact that she was removed from NCIC as a missing person. Do you mind talking about how someone being entered into NCIC has a bearing on their missing persons case, and how it also has no bearing?
It's funny you say that. As a young cop, there was a young lady that ran away from a certain part of town that I patrolled in. I didn't know her. It happened long before I got there. So she ran away when she was, say, I don't know, 15 years old. Disappeared without a trace, kind of, but it was kind of thought that she had run away. You fast forward 4 or 5 years later, and I encounter her back in the same area where she was. I run her name, and she shows up as missing, but now she's 21 or 22 years old. And she's like, yeah, that's me. I was on the posters and all the, like, she was like, in fact, I think if we go up to this gas station up here, my poster's still on the door, which is another problem because it all becomes wallpaper at that point. And she's like, I just couldn't take it at home. I just didn't want to be there. And now I don't want to be there anymore still. So what do you do? She's an adult now. And I think I coaxed her into allowing me to at least call her mom to kind of, you know, alleviate some of that. And I think her mom even came up there and talked to her. But this is a similar situation. Like, you have, there's no crime against going missing. And, you know, when you're a child, it's a different story because there's concern and, you know, maybe you can't take care of yourself, or maybe somebody has got a hold of you and you don't know how to make your decisions yet or whatever. When you're an adult, you can make those decisions on your own. You're allowed to be missing. You're allowed to drop off the face of the earth, essentially. So at what point do you take it out of NCIC or, you know, I would think that there would be a point where somebody actually came in contact with her, or she, I don't know, contacted the authorities and said, look, this is who I'm in your computer, but I don't want to be in your computer. I don't want to be in your database. I'm out. I'm good. I'm an adult. I can do whatever I want. What do you think about it?
Well, it's just sad because this is kind of a case where it really makes the argument for people who are mad about her being taken out of NCIC. She was 21 at the time. She was put into NCIC as a missing person. And then the detectives who investigated her case looked at her history of being a runaway as a juvenile. They looked at her history of being involved with nefarious characters. And they decided it was more probable than not that she wasn't actually a missing person and took her out. The other thing is, so suppose they had left her into NCIC. What does that do? Just for our audience, what does it mean to be an NCIC? It means that if someone comes across this person, they can determine that they're missing. So if a police officer in Cleveland had come across Michelle Knight while she was in captivity and run her driver's license, her identity, name and date of birth, they would have figured out that she was a missing person. It wouldn't have mattered because no Cleveland police officer had contact with her the entire 11 years she was in captivity. The police at some point investigated her disappearance, decided it wasn't suspicious enough for her to be considered a missing person. They stopped investigating it. You can break down whether or not that was the right thing to do or not, since she legitimately was being held against her will. But her status as being in NCIC, as being in a database, really didn't affect whether or not Cleveland police were actively looking for her, or it would have enabled them to find her. It would have been able to just, as soon as they located her, just confirm that she was missing.
Correct. I mean, that's all you can do. There's
Couldn't move, couldn't do anything. I couldn't tell what time of day it was because I was hooked to a pole in the middle of the floor with a motorcycle helmet on my head.
He routinely rapes her in the basement 3-4 times a day.
He would often leave a radio on really, really loud so that even if she started screaming, I couldn't hear it anyway because there was music playing.
This is just Silence of the Lambs shit. You know what I mean?
It's pretty bad stuff. Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah. So here's Amanda Berry's story.
Ariel Castro, once again, he's prowling around looking for young women. How bold is that?
Amanda had been walking home from Burger King.
Suddenly, a red car pulls up. The driver, it's a familiar face.
And Amanda realized that this was Ariel Castro, and she knew his daughter. They had all gone to school together.
You know, it's a friend's dad. And he's like, well, she's at my house. Would you like to go see her? I said, yeah, sure. I haven't seen her in a while.
They pull up in front of a modest-looking white house.
It was just really dark in there, and he told me to pull down my pants. From there, I knew, like, this was not gonna be good.
This is a scale model of Ariel Castro's home. Amanda, Michelle, chained up in separate bedrooms.
This nondescript house played a huge role in the fact that it could help Ariel Castro in keeping a human prison going.
We knew he had kids, but at the time he was living single.
I think this is what's understated about this case, John, that this guy was just living his life normal. All of his friends thought he was just living single, like that. They thought he had kids. He was a band member. He played bass in a band. You'll see, later the very animated neighbor talks about how he just used to work on his cars and his motorcycle and go back in his house. He pretty much just kept to himself. I mean, scary stuff.
Yeah.
Amanda Berry, when she first went missing, her mother, LaWanda Miller, was on the TV pleading for her return.
My daughter should not be kept off the news like that. She ain't dead yet. But it's just so frustrating living daily.
We had thousands of leads.
There's still hope for the family.
I would see them on TV, and I'm like, that kept me going. And I said, you know what, I'm gonna make it home to you. As long as you fight, I'm gonna fight.
So here's Gina DeJesus' story. Just a word on Amanda Berry, by the way. Ariel Castro apparently went to 2 or 3 of those.
I was going to say, yeah. They all knew each other, from his time as a bus driver and their kids being friends. He would go to those fundraisers. He would give Amanda Berry's mom hugs. He would offer support. what I don't like about true crime podcasts is that you get the lady in the UGG boots and the soy milk latte who has the psychiatry degree from the University of True Crime, and they talk about sexual sadists and all this and how they really get off on all the attention and how they enjoy being part of the police detection. There are a lot of cases. If you read John Douglas's classic Mindhunter, there's a lot of serial killers and very violent people who love to be involved in the law enforcement aspect of it. They get some kind of vicarious thrill from the attention being paid to the case, and at the risk of seeming like I have one of those psychiatry or psychology degrees, I think that he was one of those, because why else would he go to those things? It seemed to me like it would have been wiser to keep a lower profile, but he wanted to be there. Go ahead.
14-year-old Gina DeJesus grew up on the rough and tumble west
14 years old.
side of Cleveland.
I told her to be aware of her surroundings at all times.
Tell us about that day. You were with his daughter?
Yes, Arlene Castro. We were talking about what we wanted to do because it was Friday. And then I was like, you could come over.
And Gina lent her bus money to make the telephone call.
She asked her mom, and her mom says no.
The last thing she said to me was, you owe me 50 cents.
Right after that, Ariel Castro pulls up and offers Gina a ride.
He asks me if you've seen my daughter.
And this lure was the trick of Ariel Castro, using his own children as pawns.
You felt there's nothing strange about this, right?
No. I just knew that that was her father and my dad was friends with him.
And now she's in the house.
He's like, starts like touch me and stuff. And then I'm like, what are you doing? You can go to jail. And then he just switches up like, well, okay, you're gonna go home now. He said, but you can't go through the same door you came in.
You have to leave, through another door. I have a superstition. Well, it turns out to be the basement.
And then once you were in the basement, what happened?
Then he ended up chaining me up to the pole.
This guy's an animal, man.
Yeah. Trash.
When did you realize that there were others in the house, that you weren't the only one?
He was like, I have Amanda Berry upstairs, and I have another girl upstairs, but she's not on the TV. Like, nobody cares about her. Her name was Michelle Knight.
He would taunt me every single day. Your families don't care about you. Ain't you glad I took you? I felt like he hated me the most because I was the one that stood my ground.
5 times you were pregnant.
Yes. And each time he aborted it.
I'm sorry, Michelle.
And he's the reason why I can't have children now.
Awful.
So here's Jocelyn's story. Jocelyn is sometimes forgotten as a victim in this, and you'll see.
She was born into it, yeah.
Yeah, you'll see why.
It was a dark and hopeless existence in that house until one day everything changed when Amanda announced she was going to have a baby.
And he was going to allow her to keep that baby. It's Christmas morning, 2006, and Amanda goes into labor.
He got this baby pool because he didn't want, a mess on the bed. And he brought Michelle in the room.
He says, if this child dies, I would kill you.
Amanda gave birth to this child in the room where she had been chained. And she picked out a name, Jocelyn.
She was just the most beautiful thing.
You hear of rape victims who have a child. How do you just wrap your mind around it and make it work?
This is his kid. How do I feel about that? And she resembled him a lot. And I would look at her and I just felt like, she's mine. She's mine.
I wish the people listening could see the sparkle in her eye when she talked about that, because though this is born out of tragedy and a very daunting circumstance, she didn't care about that. She had this child.
She loved that baby. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And
I think that's a powerful statement. You know, a lot of people who are anti or who are pro-abortion or pro-women's choice, they often use the most egregious circumstances to justify their stance. Well, what about the case of rape, which is not how most abortions are happening? But look at this. This is a story right here. Worst possible instance that you can think of: a woman held in captivity, a woman raped, and yet something joyous comes out of it, something wonderful. And you can, you know, focus on the negative aspect of it, or say that this is this monster's child, or you could say this is my child. And I think that's the most powerful choice that a woman can make, is say that this child is mine.
Yeah, we're on the same wavelength in this sense. Like I'm not going to talk about a pro or anti-abortion stance, but the small percentage of just like you said a second ago, the small percentage that are from rape or incest, even in that small percentage, she's an example, and she's like, no, I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I had the child. So it kind of, I don't know, it really doesn't support the argument. That's
people know where I stand, Drew. I believe that God uses every evil that man does for ultimate good, and I think a child is unarguably a great thing.
Yes, I agree.
Surprisingly, he bonded with this child.
And when she was about 2, he started taking her outside.
She had never been to parks before and seen little kids like herself.
And I know one of the best times when you looked out and you saw the sunlight on her face for the first time.
It was the most beautiful thing. I just felt like that's where she should always be.
Well, I see him walking the baby up and down the street. He's spoiling this kid rotten.
I was like, who'd you steal this girl from? And, you know, Ariel just looks over and says, oh, this is my girlfriend's daughter.
Can you imagine that the baby was born on Christmas Day? And it turned out to be the gift that got them out of the house.
Cleveland 911. This broad is trying to break out the house next door to me.
All right, a little levity coming up. This is the 911 call from the neighbor, Charles Ramsey, who later turned into kind of a celebrity because of this. But
well, he's a hero too. Just to mention it.
Yeah, just to be clear, you're right.
Yeah.
This is also, though, a pretty real 911 call. I have Amanda Berry's 911 call also, but this is a very real 911 call. And of course, the dispatcher takes a lot of heat for this. I mean, I think anybody that's been in the profession will kind of be like, not that bad, but I mean, we'll see.
Cleveland 911, police, ambulance, or fire. Yeah, hey, bro, I'm at 2207 Seymour, West 25th. Hey, check this out. I just came from McDonald's, right? So I'm on my porch eating my little food, right? This broad is trying to break out the fucking house next door to me. So there's a bunch of people on the street right now and shit. So we like, well, what's wrong with you? What's the problem? She like, this motherfucker done kidnapped me and my daughter, and we've been in this bitch. She say her name is Linda Berry or some shit. I don't know who the fuck that is. I just moved over here, bro. Sir, you know what I mean? Sir, you have to calm down and slow down. Is she still in the street? Seymour Avenue. Is she still in the street, or where did she go? Yeah, I'm looking at her. She right now. She calling y'all. She on another phone. Is she black, white, or Hispanic? She white, but the baby look Hispanic. Okay, what is she wearing? White tank top, light blue sweatpants. Like a wife beater. Do you know the address next door that she said she was in? Yeah, 2207. I'm looking at it. Okay, I thought that was your address. So that house. No, I'm smarter than that, bro. I'm telling you where the crime was. Okay, look, sir, we can't talk at the same time. Do you want to leave your name and number? Or remain anonymous? Charles Ramsey, R-A-M-S-E-Y. What's the phone number?
Redacted.
Are the people she said that did this, do you know if they're still in the house? I don't have a fucking clue, bro. I just said I came from McDonald's. Can you ask her if she needs an ambulance? Yeah, ambulance? Or what? She needs everything. She's in a panic, bro. I guess she's been kidnapped, so, you know, put yourself in her shoes. We'll send the police out. Thank you. There you go.
All right. I mean,
let me know when you're ready for my take.
Yeah, have at it, because Charles makes some very good points, to be honest.
He does. First of all, I've never heard it before, so this is my absolute first reaction. I treat the audience to that. It's not just that I don't want to prepare for my own show. It's that I want to be authentic.
Yeah.
Everybody that calls has a story to tell. And when you're 911 dispatcher, you carefully control the flow of information to get the most important things as fast as possible through questions, persons, descriptions, locations. And then every once in a while, once in a generation perhaps, you come across a character like Charles Ramsey, American hero, but a true character. He is a very, very unique person. He is very smart. I am not putting him down at all. I'm not putting down the 911 dispatcher either. But Charles Ramsey has it all figured out, and the dispatcher has to play catch up. You have to admit, and I covered this when I was talking about another case on my other show, where a 911 dispatcher takes a call from a person who says, I just found a human head in my son's closet. I don't know if you're familiar with that case, Drew, but it's very, very, very infinitesimally small that a 911 dispatcher is ever going to take a call about a severed head or about a woman who's been locked in a house for 10 years.
Yeah, or somebody who's ejected from an airplane.
Or someone who has ejected from a fighter plane.
Right.
There are certain calls, there's a certain classification of calls that are going to go beyond and outside our protocols, which are designed to efficiently handle routine emergencies. There is such a thing as a routine emergency. And then there's an extraordinary emergency. And then sometimes there's extraordinary emergencies that are still sort of routine in the fact that we can understand them, right? We can understand a skyscraper being on fire. We know what's needed for that. This guy calling and then saying he's on his way back from McDonald's when he sees this woman trying to scream out of a house, and she's been in there for 10 years and she needs everything, man. She's panicked. And no, I'm smarter than that. I gave you the address. Like, in some ways, Charles Ramsey is so much smarter than your average caller. Like, you almost don't trust him to be accurate, but this guy knows what's going on. He's obviously been involved in the situation for a little bit, but he's a character. And so the dispatcher seems a little slow on the uptake, but in his defense, this is the call of his career.
Yeah,
and, we're not always ready for that.
I can tell you this too. Like I've social media has these pages now that play 911 calls, and I'm telling you, every third call that I listen to is fake. It's very clearly fake.
Oh, very much so. I hate that. People send those to me and they're like, get a load of this. I'm like, well, that's not real. That's not real. Yeah. That's not even realistic.
If I had just listened to the first 10 seconds of Charles's call, I would say this is fake.
I would too,
because of the way just his rhythm and everything. But when it plays out, you're like, holy shit, this guy's genuine. So this is coming from somebody who used to take 911 calls, and a guy, who currently does. He sounds fake at the beginning. Like, this is almost like a, what the fuck's this guy saying? What's he saying?
I would have thought like this guy's completely drunk or something. I would have thought I'm talking to somebody who's intoxicated. And then as it all just comes together so cogently, you're like, well, this cannot be denied, obviously.
All right. Well, here's Amanda's. This is actually Amanda, who was standing right next to him, apparently. She needed everything, bro.
Cleveland 911. Please. Help me. I'm Amanda Berry.
You need police, fire, or ambulance?
I need police.
Okay, and what's going on there?
I've been kidnapped, and I've been missing for 10 years, and I'm here. I'm free now.
Okay, and what's your address? Calling me from...
Huh?
Looks like you're calling me from...
I can't hear you.
It looks like you were calling me from...
I'm using the phone.
Okay, stay there with those neighbors. Talk to the police when they get there.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, talk to the police when they get there.
Okay. Hello?
Yeah, talk to the police when they get there.
Okay, all right. I'm going right now.
We're going to send them as soon as we get a car open.
No, I need them now before we get back.
All right, we're sending them, okay?
Okay, I mean, like,
who's the guy who's the guy who went out?
His name...
All right, how old is he?
He's like 52.
All right, and
Steven, I'm Amanda Berry. I've been on the news for the last 10 years.
okay, I got that
With
here. I already.
Gina.
And you said what was his name again? And is he white, black, or Hispanic?
I'm Hispanic.
And what's he wearing?
I don't know.
When he left, what was he wearing?
Sweetheart, it's a pity. What?
Right, the police are on the way. Talk to them when they get there. Okay?
Okay.
I told you they're on the way. Talk to them when they get there, okay?
All right, okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, John. Yeah, go ahead.
There's no way you could satisfy her needs at that moment, right? Like she's been in captivity all these years. The guy is gone. She's obviously terrified. They've been afraid to escape this entire time. You have to remember something about the situation that's going on with Amanda Berry. She literally has not been outside or seen another human being other than her co-captives and Ariel Castro and the little girl for years. She is very overstimulated by what's going on. I'm sure she's longed for this day. There's no way that we can fulfill the expectations. She wants a police officer there. We're saying, hey, we'll send one as soon as we have one, which is just, that's real life. Like everything going on with Ariel Castro, Amanda Berry, and all the rest. That is an emergency of critical importance. However, there are also emergencies of critical importance to everyone else currently going on in Cleveland. And he says, we'll get you there, someone there as soon as we can. And she goes, well, it's not fast enough. How could it be? Making a police magically appear right then is the only thing that could possibly assuage the anxiety and overwhelming feelings that she has. But I think good job to this dispatcher, asking some questions like, what is he wearing? The people who are listening to that, I have no doubt, are saying like, well, what does that matter? I'm like, we need to find this guy. Like he's out in the wind. It's very, because he's going to turn on his block at one point and see all the gathering of people, the news crews, the police department, and he's going to be like, cheese it, the cops, and he's going to get the hell out of there. So we need to be very, very, very proactive about apprehending him ASAP. And so finding out his name, we could figure out who's at that address, figure out his vehicles. This guy was very well known for frequenting McDonald's. In fact, he fed his captives McDonald's for many years, which I also view as a form of punishment above and beyond the Geneva Convention. But it was just the dispatchers are trying to do the best they can to respond to one of the most incredible incidents in Cleveland history, but also just in the history of crime. How do you respond to that? And they're doing the best they can.
Yeah, and I think this kind of even lends to, it sounds like a seasoned dispatcher, but how am I supposed to know that? But at any rate, if they haven't been a dispatcher for 10 years, they may not know who Amanda Berry is, right? So I get that everyone knows who Amanda Berry is, but everyone knows now. So in Cleveland, it may have just kind of floated to the bottom of the tank, so to speak. I mean,
to be honest, the presumption that everyone knows everything is something that bugs me as a dispatcher. Someone had called me last week and they said, we're talking about a local. And I'm like, I'm sorry, this person how? And they're just like, well, everyone knows them. And I'm like, I don't know them. Like, just don't presume that your knowledge is universal. I think that's something that bugs dispatchers. So, and case in point, like I remember this case from way back in the day. Haven't thought about it since. So then when you texted me, hey, this is the case we're doing, I'm just like, I don't know anything about that. I'm gonna have to do a bunch of research on it. I'm like, oh, obviously it was this thing. So the knowledge isn't universal. And like you kind of like what you said about wallpaper, people going missing in Cleveland. I'm sure it was a big deal that like we had 3 women going missing or whatever, but how many other women went missing and had nothing to do with Ariel Castro? And how often is that just true in the country? And the wallpaper effect is what I'll call it. It's just you
one
forget.
of them, the first one didn't technically go missing because even as Ariel reminded her all the time, nobody knows you're here. You're nobody cares about you. Like
which
no one knows.
Which is, a terrible aspect of it that, Michelle Knight wasn't treated the same way. The fact that, that Kimberly, or Barry, that, everyone knew that who she was because she was getting all this press, Amanda Berry, but Michelle Knight was not nearly as well known. It was very terrible, but, gosh, I don't even know what to say about it other than it just being simply exactly what happened is that her family was less connected with her and she was able to disappear more easily. It's actually just a tragedy of people who have family problems is that they're very, very likely to fall into lives that end this way.
Yeah.
But positive story though for Michelle Knight that she was able to get out.
Yep. All right, we're gonna keep going here because it gets. This is the police response, John. I thought this was pretty.
Cleveland 911.
Hello, please. Help me, I'm Amanda Berry.
As Amanda makes her frantic 911 call, a Cleveland police zone car is patrolling near the West Side Market. It is 5:52 in the afternoon, 17:52 in military time. When the car gets the call from a dispatcher.
1752, Adam 23 for code 1.
Code 1 is the highest priority you can get.
I have a call taker on the phone with a female who says her name is Amanda Berry and that she had been kidnapped 10 years ago.
Officer Anthony Espada and his partner, Officer Michael Tracy, race about a mile down West 25th and turn on to Seymour Avenue to see Amanda Berry holding her young daughter.
Even before we could stop the car, she's right at the window. We look at her and we look at each other, and that's her.
I mean, as soon as she walked up to the window, he just looked at me with it. I mean, I could tell. Never saw that look on Mike before, and he's like, it's her.
Officer Espada says Amanda still had a ring in her eyebrow that was visible in her old photos, which helped them make a quick ID.
Just kind of asked her, what's your name? And she looked at me. She said, I'm Amanda Berry.
Amanda tells the officers that 2 other women, Michelle Knight and Gina DeJesus, are still captive inside Ariel Castro's home. Officer Tracy is the first one to go in.
When I got in the house right away, I started yelling, Cleveland police, and I just listened. I didn't hear anything. It was just very quiet.
Tracy clears the first floor and heads for the basement. Officer Espada heads upstairs with Officer Barbara Johnson backing him up, their guns drawn.
It was very quiet until you hear the pitter-patter steps. Then you're, what's going on?
As far as we knew, Ariel Castro was still in the house. Barb was behind me. She had my back. As we're walking up the stairs, I'm calling out Cleveland police, Cleveland police.
Michelle and Gina do not emerge, perhaps fearing Ariel Castro would be there as well. But Michelle does peer out of a bedroom into the darkness of the upstairs hall.
She kind of peeked. And, we're kind of like in a standoff, staring at each other.
Officer Johnson rotates the flashlight on her gun towards the police patch on her shoulder to identify the officers to Michelle.
I shined the light so she could see, and that's, I think, when she came running out.
She kind of caught me off guard. She jumped on me, had her arms around my neck, her feet wrapped around my waist. I couldn't holster my gun. I'm trying to hold her, and she's just yelling in my face, you saved us, you saved us. I'm Michelle Knight.
Wow.
I've been here for 10 years or 12 years.
About a dozen officers were now at the home, but upstairs, Officers Espada and Johnson were about to be shocked again.
Then you see another person walk out of the bedroom, and I immediately knew who it was, and I just asked her name, and she said Gina DeJesus.
Amanda Berry and her daughter, born during their captivity, were already outside with other officers, and within about an hour the rescue would become huge news here in Cleveland and around the world. But for that first moment upstairs, it is just Michelle and Gina and Officer Johnson and Officer Espada.
We needed to broadcast to let everybody, they're safe, but I had to wait a minute, because if I would have immediately started talking into the mic, I would have broke down.
Officer Espada takes a breath and broadcasts the call to police dispatch.
Adam 23 radio. We found them. We found them.
Michelle, Gina, Amanda, and her daughter were quickly whisked the short distance from the Seymour Avenue home here to the Metro Health Medical Center's emergency department, and Officer Johnson rode with them.
A lot of tears at the hospital for me.
We will bring Amanda home.
There had been rallies for Amanda and Gina for a decade. Both were juveniles when they went missing. This is Amanda's sister, Beth, 2 years ago.
My heart, I just miss her so much.
And this is Gina's mother at a rally last year, just a month before her daughter's rescue.
I know Gina is out there. And Gina, if you can see this, honey, know and trust that I love you. We will never give up this fight. We will fight to the end to bring you home.
Their kidnapper, Ariel Castro, attended some of the rallies.
He would bring home the flyers for them to see. They saw the rallies on the TV. So they knew.
Knew that their families and their community had not given up on finding them, which we've since learned helped keep Amanda and Gina going until that extraordinary night 1 year ago that ended inside Metro's emergency department with almost magical family reunions.
Oh my God. The cheers, the screaming, the tears. We had to block off that part of the emergency room just because it was very loud from the excitement.
Reunions made possible in part because of Amanda's bravery in breaking out of that house and the courage of 3 Cleveland police officers to go rushing in.
You got to take everything seriously. Everyone that comes over, you never give up hope.
All right, so that's where we get what you were saying at the beginning. Like, maybe we shouldn't demonize every cop for doing every little thing. Maybe you should understand that this is representative of what a cop would do.
Detectives and investigations like these are also what you're defunding. When you look at a police department or a situation like what would happen with George Floyd, where you have a patrol officer, positional asphyxia, whatever it is that you're mad about when it comes to police, just remember when you're defunding them, you're also taking away from critical investigations that are trying to save the lives of people like these 3. Now, I know that being held captive for 10 years inside a house is an extraordinary situation, but how many other missing people are out there? How many other murder cases that are going unsolved? You're defunding the same police department that's trying to bring justice to all these people as well.
Yeah, exactly. We had a star born during this whole thing. You heard him on his 911 call. Let's watch his interview. This is what made him famous, John. Charles Ramsey.
Charles, let me talk to you. I'm talking with Charles Ramsey. He's a neighbor. Walk me through again what happened this afternoon. You heard screaming.
Heard screaming. I meet my McDonald's. I come outside. I see this girl going nuts, trying to get out of her house. So I go on the porch.
Okay.
I go on the porch, and she says, "Help me get out. I've been in here a long time." So, you know, I figured it's a domestic violence dispute. So I open the door, and we can't get in that way because how the door is, it's so much that a body can't fit through, only your hand. So we kick the bottom, and she comes out with the little girl, and she says, "Call 911. My name is Amanda Berry."
Now, did you know who that was when she said that?
When she told me, it didn't register until I got the call in 911, and I'm like, I'm calling the 911 for Amanda Berry. I thought this girl was dead. You know what I mean? And she got on the phone and she said, "Yes, this is me." And the detective, Cook, right here, Detective Gregory Cook says, "Charles, do you know who you rescued?" I said.
Now, and when did you see Gina?
About.
I just want to point out that whole area is chaos, and they're doing that interview. But the way he reacted to those sirens, I don't think he'd been in trouble, Charles, but he's also like a man of the streets. He's like, I ain't done enough to give you my address. I told you where the crime was. And then he hears those sirens and he just kind of like his shoulders were frozen. He just kind of like,
should we just sum it up maybe to say fight or flight? Maybe. I don't know.
Flight. I want to see it just one more time because I think that's one of my favorite parts of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Me and the detective, Cook, right here, Detective Gregory Cook says, "Charles, do you know who you rescued?" I said.
Now, when did you see Gina?
About 5.
We're good.
Also, during the interview, like other news crews are like, "Hey man, can you pull that black cable for me?" Like he's being interviewed by one station and another station is asking for favors with their cabling, and he obliges. He's just a good dude. He's funny. He's animated. He's just a good dude.
So about 5 minutes after the police got here, see, the girl Amanda told the police, "I ain't just the only ones. It's some more girls up in that house." So they went up there, 30, 40 deep, and when they came out was just astonishing because I thought they were going to come up with nothing. I figured, whoever she was, and like I say, my neighbor, you got some big testicles to pull this off, bro, because we see this dude every day. Every day.
How long have you lived here?
I've been here a year.
Okay.
You see where I'm coming from?
Right.
barbecue with this dude. We eat ribs and whatnot and listen to salsa music. You see where I'm coming from?
And you had no indication that there was anything going on?
Bro, not a clue that girl was in that house or anybody else was in there against their will. Because how he is he just comes out to his backyard, plays with the dogs, tinker with his cars and motorcycles, goes back in the house. So he's somebody that you look away because he's not doing nothing but the average stuff. You see what I'm saying? There's nothing exciting about him. Well, until the day.
What was the reaction on the girls' faces? I can't imagine to see the sunlight, to be around people.
I knew something was wrong when a little pretty white girl ran into a black man's arms. Something is wrong here. Dead giveaway. Dead giveaway.
Charles, thank you very much.
Dead giveaway.
Thank you very much for your time. And
either she homeless or she got problems. That's the only reason why she run to a black man.
Charles, thank you for being there, man. Charles Ramsey, the neighbor, heard the screaming, took action, went and did what he needed to do. The rest is unfolding before us here on Seymour. I'm going to send it back to you.
They've never seen nobody in that house, bro.
He's still talking. He's just talking to the neighbors out there, but it's just so funny, man.
See, you ain't have faith. That's what it is. You lost faith. Now it's restored.
All right, so
I love the way the reporter, once he starts getting on this jag about how like I knew something was wrong when a pretty white girl ran into a black man's arms. He's just like, okay, you're an eccentric hero. Before you say something that will revoke our FCC license, I'm gonna get the hell out of here.
That was his version of the police of the siren. That was the reporter's
That was
version
like,
of the
okay,
siren.
thanks for being there. Literally
Like,
patting the guy on the chest.
Like, no, we're gonna talk about that. Okay.
Yeah.
So
also, I have to commend Mr. Ramsey just for saying this dude got some big testicles. You know, he realizes he's on the news and he's using the actual anatomically correct term. Good for him.
So he I've seen subsequent interviews with him, and he is just as animated. Like, that's not an act. That's just him.
Yeah, it's not him being excited on the day. It's just who he is.
No, it's just who he is. He had a great interview with somebody. Like, things turned out well for him, I guess. I don't know where he is at the moment.
Yes and no. I know that because he was both coming from McDonald's and mentioned that they captured the guy at McDonald's. Right. I know McDonald's was very pleased by that because of how much McDonald's was being mentioned in the news. They gave him a bunch of vouchers for free McDonald's. Yeah. And then he started handing them out to homeless people who needed something to eat. And then McDonald's found out that he was giving them away. So naturally, what would you do, Drew? Yeah. Obviously, you would turn that off. You would make sure that
shut it off.
He doesn't help homeless people anymore with free McDonald's, which cost McDonald's a pittance, you know.
So he also was in the middle of an interview with somebody, and they were saying, like, we've heard that you've received calls from as far away as France. What do you think about that? And he looks her dead in the eye. He's like, I think my T-Mobile bill's going to be through the roof.
Oh, there was one more thing about him, and I guess I want to verify this, but this is what I heard, is that there was some reward money, and that he received that, and that he gave it to the victims. That he didn't take any of that for himself.
I think I remember. Which, it's not in here. I remember seeing something about that.
Which is amazing. But there's one last thing that bears mentioning. There was another man there, not just Charles Ramsey, but Angel Cordero was there as well. Angel Cordero was also a neighbor. He responded to the sounds of the screaming. Angel Cordero did not speak a lot of English, and that's why he didn't get to do the interviews. That's why he needed Charles Ramsey's help to communicate with people inside. There's some dispute about, how much Angel and Charles were both involved in the rescue. Both of them are heroes. Obviously, Charles, it really wouldn't matter even if Angel Cordero spoke English. Charles Ramsey's personality is so big that he's obviously a darling for that moment. But just to mention that there were other people there, and obviously when you heard those 911 calls coming in, there were other neighbors that were gathering around, people that eat ribs and listen to salsa music together in this neighborhood.
So here's the sentencing, so we can have a really fine conclusion here.
And receive from this court an aggregate sentence of incarceration to be served of life without parole, consecutive to what amounts to a sentence of 1,000 years to life.
Life without parole, consecutive for 1,000 years. So he got an additional 1,000 on top of life. So
now, for those of you that don't aren't involved in the criminal justice system, what that means is that if he gets reincarnated as a baby, the baby will be immediately remanded to the custody of the Ohio Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, and so on and so forth until those 1,000 years are up.
Yeah, it must live 1,000 years to pay that debt to society off, at which time he will be thanked by somebody in California.
Yes.
But here's there's a little more to the sentencing. I thought the judge did a fine job here.
Understand that sentence, Mr. Castro.
Watch the defense attorney here. He says, "Do you understand that sentence, Mr. Castro?" Castro gets the whole thing. He's like, "Yeah, man, I kept him fucking captive 10 years, of course." Watch the defense attorney. There's a name for what he does.
Castro.
Yes, I do, Your Honor.
So the court has reviewed and accepted the plea agreement, the recommended sentence. I don't see any further purpose.
I guess I missed it, or maybe I cut it out, but he does what's known as a cleansing breath. It's just kind of like a, whew, this is over. Like, it's not a, like, I wasn't expecting this. I mean, I'm sure that defense attorney was like, the judge could just say, well, I'm going to pull out a shotgun and shoot you right now, Mr. Castro. Are you okay with that? And the defense attorney would then have to duck.
I wonder if these guys were tasked to defend him. I wonder if they were public
probably.
defenders,
They were probably court appointed, which is different than a public defender. I don't know factually that this could be public defenders. I don't know, but sometimes they do like a rotation where the court appoints like a decent level attorney, and they have to do their
have to do a certain amount of pro bono work. Yeah.
In going beyond life without parole in 1,000 years, a person can only die in prison once, and certainly you will receive a sentence that is commensurate with the harm you've done, but one that also accomplishes the sentencing principles and the purposes here in Ohio. And Mr. Castro, you already have no contact with your victims. Don't send them letters. Don't make phone calls. Don't have others contact them. They have requested after this proceeding to go back to the lives that they formerly enjoyed. Not anonymous, just not celebrities. They're certainly not anonymous. They were people that had vast connections in the Cleveland community, and they want to reintegrate and renew those and expand them. But they would also like their privacy, so you will not be permitted to contact them. Is that clear?
Now he's got the testicles once again. Hold on.
Yes? You understand that requirement?
Are you referring to my daughter also?
Yes, she's a victim. She was a subject of 3 counts of endangering a child. So by law, she is a victim.
I know, but I heard through experts that I can file for parental rights.
Well, as in many other instances, a person can file. Whether they're going to be successful is a different matter, and it would take place in a different court. It does not involve this court. But, I'm imposing a no contact order. You should not try and contact them from the institution. Okay?
I do understand.
All right, now.
So here's the finale. It's pretty quick.
All right, Mr. Castro.
Stand in judgment.
If you would rise, please.
Take it.
Sir, there's no place in this city, there's no place in this country, indeed there's no place in this world for those who enslave others, those who sexually assault others, or those who brutalize others. For more than 10 years you have preyed upon 3 young women. You subjected them to harsh and violent conduct. You felt you were dominating them, but you were incorrect. You could not take away their dignity. Although they suffered terribly, Ms. Knight, Ms. DeJesus, and Ms. Berry did not give up hope. They have persevered. In fact, they prevailed. These remarkable women, again, have their freedom, which is the most precious aspect of being an American. Mr. Castro, you forfeited that right. You now become a number with the Department of Rehabilitation and Correction. You will be confined for the remainder of your days. You are hereby remanded for transport to the Wayne Correctional Institution. Now, for Ms. Knight, Ms. DeJesus, and Ms. Berry, as well as your young daughter, we celebrate your futures. We acknowledge the faithfulness of your families, your friends, and all others in this community who so fervently believe that you are alive. On behalf of the judges and the staff of this court, we wish each of you success and a sense of peace. We're adjourned. Thank you. Thank you. You're welcome.
For the remainder of his days, John, could you imagine hearing that as an investigator putting somebody away for the rest of their lives who victimized those three people?
The judge was very dignified. I would have put it very, very differently just because I'm a bit of a character myself. I would have been like, straight to prison. Straight to rape you in the a-hole prison. Get out of here. I don't know, because just he's one of the most reprehensible people that I've ever read about or heard about, and I cover a lot of these cases, and this is truly a disgusting human being. And just if you want to know how the story ends, even though he's talking about trying to have custody or contact with his daughter Jocelyn, not long after he went to the Department of Corrections facility, when faced with lifetime of confinement and notoriety for his crimes, he hung himself, killed himself. There was some dispute about whether or not, as a sex addict, he was engaged in an act of, self gratification. But I believe the coroner or the medical examiner's final report is that he just killed himself. So, very unfortunate that he didn't face even a shadow of what those poor women had to endure at his hands.
May have even been under the protection of one Jake M.F. Welder, as far as we know.
May have been, which the protection that you speak of could be dubious at best. So
yes, dubious at best. Well, that is the story. We wanted to give kind of a cleansed, like a kind of a happy story. I mean, it had a positive ending at least, and there's characters abound. But life still goes on.
Can I play the video?
Oh shoot. The best part of this, right?
Yeah, we're an hour and a half deep, so YouTube won't care at this point, right?
No, they won't care.
Charles Ramsey, he's a neighbor. Walk me through again what happened this afternoon.
I knew something was wrong when a little pretty white girl ran into a black man's arms. Dad gave away. Dad gave away. My neighbor got big testicles cause we see this dude every day. We eat ribs with this dude, but we didn't have a clue that that girl was in that house. She said, please help me get out. Dad give away. 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 My neighbor got big testicles cause we see this dude every day. We eat ribs with this dude, but we didn't have a clue that that girl was in that house. She said, please help me get out. So I open the door, we can't get in that way. The body can't fit through the door, only your hand. So we kick the bottom, and she comes out, and she says, it's some old girls up in that house. Call 911, and they called him at McDonald's. I knew something was wrong when a little pretty white girl ran into a black man's arms. Dad gave away. Dad gave away. My neighbor got big testicles cause we see this dude every day. We eat ribs with this dude, but we didn't have a clue that that girl was in that house. She said, please help me get out. Dad gave away.
Look at that face.
That's
beautiful. I had never seen that video, and the creativity of people astonishes.
These are one of the first few videos to go viral.
Yeah.
And that was the trend to use auto-tune and remix.
Oh yeah, I think it still goes on, but you have to have a good source material, which definitely is one of these guys. Awesome case, Drew. Thank you. Good job to the Cleveland Police Department. Just a reminder, police are heroes. Not perfect, but they are heroes, and the real monsters are out there. People like Ariel Castro, and the thin blue line is all that stands between you and them. So how about supporting your local police officers and remembering them? Folks, if you like the show, you could be part of it by calling us and leaving us a voicemail. Call 848-COMM-911. That's 848-266-6911. We always love our voicemails.
Nice.
We also love it. Yes, thank you. We also love it when our voicemails have something substantive and good to say that contribute to the conversation about what we're talking about on the show. So please contribute to the conversation. If you have thoughts on everything that went down with the Ariel Castro Cleveland kidnappings, We would love to play them next week, so do call in. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you hit like and subscribe. If you already got to an hour and a half deep, you obviously love us more than anything, possibly more than going to work or your own family. Make sure you're clicking like or subscribe. On Rumble, ditto. Make sure you're following us over there on Apple Podcasts. Make sure you subscribe and rate. We've received a couple in the past month. I wanted to mention that Mike Dutcher of Minnesota is the winner of the contest. I have personally commissioned some new artwork or recrafted some artwork, some classic artwork of me and Drew. And I have applied that to a mug, which will be delivered to my house, quality checked by me, possibly signed with a Sharpie. And then along with other Comm Center branded swag will be sent to Mike. He's already reached out to me. I have his address. Thank you. I appreciate it. I should go ahead and read what he says. He says, best thing since serves Banting, Charles Best, and John McLeod, creating a little drug called insulin, which allows me to listen every day to every episode and be entertained. If not for both, Comm Center and insulin, I would die a slow and painful death. So thank you for throwing us in there. I would have said we were up there with Alexander Fleming and the discovery of penicillin, but who am I to complain? Thank you, Mike, for that wonderful review. Yours was the only one that was done within the allotted time frame, so that is why you technically win. Good job. If you're listening on Spotify, make sure you follow us. Make sure you leave a 5-star rating. We appreciate that. You can check us out on Instagram at the Comm Center. You can find Drew at What Say Drew. If you want to find me on Instagram, good luck. I'm not telling you my handle today. If you want to find us on X, you can do that at Comm Center Pod. We appreciate you. And of course, on Facebook, we have an excellent group at the Comm Center. You can always follow us over there. Drew, I have nothing else to say to you.
I'm exhausted.
Podcast is over. Goodbye.
God said good day.
I said good day, sir. Spotify.